Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari. Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari. Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari. Yasoda Nandana Brajana Ranjana. Yasoda Nandana Brajana Ranjana. Yasoda Nandana Brajana Ranjana. Yasoda Nandana Brajana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Girdhari Radha Girdhari Radhe. Jaya Radha Girdhari Radha Girdhari Radhe. Prabhupada, 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 Prabhupada. Jai Jai Prabhupada, 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 Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Jam Vishpad Paramahamsa Pravajik Acharya Sotar Sata Shishimadesi Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada ki jai. ISKCON founder Acharya Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Jayam Vishpad Paramahamsa Pravajik Acharya Sotar Sata Shishimad Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada ki jai. Jayam Paramahamsa Srila Gaur Kishore Das Babiji Maharaj ki jai. Srila Satchidananda Bhakti Vinod Thakur ki jai. Srila, how's it go? Gora, Virbhava, Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj ki jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai. Namacharya Shri Haridas Thakur ki jai. Prem se kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopal Shamagun Radhakun Giri Govardhan ki jai. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Samaveda Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Gaur Premanandi. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Glories to Srila Prabhupada. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Balaye Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Vicharne Nivishasvati. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. We're getting to hear from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4. Chapter 31, Narada instructs the Prachetas, text number 8. Maitreya vacha iti prachetasam prishto iti prachetasam presto Bhagavan Narado Muni Bhagavan Narado Muni Bhagavati Uttama Shloka. Bhagavati Uttama Shloka. Let's break this one down. Shloka. Avishta Atma Abhavrit. I'm sorry, it's Abhavrit Nipan. Avishtatma Bravin Nipan. Maitreya vacha iti prachesti sampristo Bhagavan Narado Muni Bhagavatuttama Shloka Avishtatma Bravin Nipan. Maitreya vacha iti prachesta sampristo Bhagavan Narado Muni Bhagavatuttama Shloka Avishtatma Bhavin Nipan. Maitreya vacha iti prachesta sampristo Bhagavan Narado Muni Bhagavatuttama Shloka Avishtatma Bhavin Nipan. Maitreya vacha iti prachesta sampristo Bhagavan Narado Muni Bhagavatuttama Shloka Avishtatma Bhavin Nipan. Maitreya vacha iti prachesta sampristo Bhagavan Narado Muni Bhagavatuttama Shloka Avishtatma Bhavin Nipan. What other verse is there? Bhagavati Uttama Shloka. What other verse has that? First canto. How's it going? Nasta Prayesha Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevya Bhagavati Uttama Shloka. There you go. Bhakti Bhakti Naishtaki. Okay. Maitreya Vacha. Maitreya said, Iti, thus, Prachetasam, by the Prachetas, Prishta, being asked, Bhagavan, the great devotee of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Narada, Muni, very thoughtful, Bhagavati, in the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Uttama Shloke, possessing excellent renown, Avishta, absorbed, Atma, whose mind, Abravit, replied, Nirpan, to the kings. Translation. The great sage Maitreya continued. We're referring all the way back to the conversation that started in the third canto. Parikshit Maharaj wanted to know, Vidura met Maitreya, or Vidura left home, what happened? So this is a continuation. Great sage Maitreya continued, my dear Vidura, being thus petitioned by the Prachetas, the supreme devotee Narada, who is always absorbed in thoughts of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, began to reply. What was the petition of the Prachetas? Yesterday's verse. Does anybody have it in mind what they asked for? Dear Master, kindly enlighten us in transcendental knowledge, which may act as a torchlight by which we may cross the dark nescience of material existence. Purport by His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada. In this verse, Bhagavan Narada indicates that Narada is always absorbed in thoughts of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Bhagavati Uttama Shloka Avishtatma. Narada has no other business than thinking of Krishna, talking of Krishna, preaching about Krishna. Therefore, he's sometimes called Bhagavan. Bhagavan means, any of our newer devotees know what Bhagavan means? Could you speak a little louder or use a mic? That's what it means in the relationship with Narada, but generally that's not the definition. Full of all opulences, he who possesses all opulences. Bhaga means opulences, Van, one who possesses. There's only one person who can claim that title. Who's that? Krishna. But we hear one who is always thinking of Krishna, talking of Krishna, preaching about Krishna, who has captured Krishna within his heart. He can be described, glorified as Bhagavan. Bhagavan means one who possesses all opulences. When a person possesses Bhagavan within his heart, he's also sometimes called Bhagavan. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur said, Sakshadaritena samasta shastrayar, in every shastra. Fact. Srila Prabhupada's sentence is, he says, in every shastra, the spiritual master is accepted directly as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This does not mean that the spiritual master or a saintly person like Narada has actually become the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But he's accepted in this way because he possesses the Supreme Personality of Godhead within his heart constantly. As described here, Avishtatma, word for word, Avishta, absorbed, Atma, whose mind. As described here, Avishtatma, when one is simply absorbed in thought of Krishna, one is also called Bhagavan. Bhagavan possesses all opulences. If one possesses Bhagavan within his heart always, does he not automatically possess all opulence also? What do you think? Does he? Yes? He has access to it if Krishna so desires, doesn't he? Yeah, so if you possess Krishna within your heart, if you've captured Krishna, Krishna is always looking for the opportunity to serve his devotee. The devotee is always looking for the opportunity to serve Krishna. As we heard in yesterday's class, he doesn't want any material desire, any material benediction. He just wants service. And the reward for his service? More service. So if the Lord sees that the devotee can be facilitated in the devotee's service, then he can give him any opulence required. So does he not also possess all opulence? In that sense, a great devotee like Narada can be called Bhagavan. However, we cannot tolerate when a rascal or impostor is called Bhagavan. One must possess either all opulences or the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Bhagavan, who possesses all opulences. If we could pray together, please. Om Gyanatimirandasya Gyananjana Salakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadandikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raganatan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padam Sagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitamscha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Tapta Kanchana Gaurange Radhe Vrindavanishvari Vrishabhana Sutta Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Panchakopa Turubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Bhevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Now most of you are here when we read the word-for-word transliterations. Did anybody notice a mistake in the word-for-word transliterations? Or did you just repeat what I said? Actually, we should always have "are." These two words are coming to mind. It's my conditioning, I'm sure, but our thinking cap on. When we say attentive hearing, which is what we want to be doing, we want to be processing what we're hearing, comparing it to what we have heard from Srila Prabhupada, the previous acharyas, the siddhanta of our philosophy, the teachings is given to us by Srila Prabhupada. So I'll give you a tip. Narada means what? Let's pretend like I'm saying Bhagavan. Repeat, please. The great devotee of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Now I can't hear you. Narada. Narada. Muni. Very thoughtful. Does Muni sound like very thoughtful? Do you know what a Muni is? Sage. Prabhupada in one definition gives, and he's referring to those who are not devotees. Muni means one who utilizes intelligence to come with a particular understanding of Scripture or his own understanding of something. That'll be different from all the other thinkers. Philosophers, basically, we could use that definition as. A Muni. What's Narada's name? What do we generally say? Do you think it means Narada, very thoughtful? Think about it. Okay, see, now Bhakti Ravi is using his intelligence. He's trying to understand. We should always use our intelligence how what Srila Prabhupada tells us is true. That's a very important point. What Srila Prabhupada gives in disciplic succession, it's true. Even if it doesn't make any sense to me, even if my mind is saying, wow, that's not right, that can't be right, how is that right? A sincere devotee in time will have revealed to him how it is perfect, because it's coming from someone who has captured Krishna from within his heart. One who always talked of Krishna, who always preached of Krishna, who was always thinking of Krishna. Prabhupada so many times said, I didn't write these purports. He loved reading his books. He loved hearing devotees read his books because he didn't write them. Another quote that I saw that I hadn't heard before, just not too long ago, Srila Prabhupada prayed to Krishna, my dear Lord, please, this is such an ocean of transcendental knowledge, and I don't have complete understanding of all of it. Please, you guide me to write what you want to be said about this transcendental knowledge. Now that's the humility of a Vaishnava Acharya and author. When you think I got it down and I can write, what empowerment will come through? Even if academically or intellectually you are sharp as a tack. You're a real Muni who has put down all other Munis, conquered all other Munis. So anyway, I read this, and I'm going to tell you why the alarm went off when I was reading or trying to hear. Muni, very thoughtful. So I called Dravida Prabhu. I said, Muni means a person, Narada Muni. What's going on? Very thoughtful is a description of a person. Am I right? That's like an adjective, which is what you were saying. He looked it up in the transcription of Srila Prabhupada's words for words, and the actual understanding is one who is very, very thoughtful. So maybe, we won't guess motive, but his joke was, so they were not being very thoughtful when they left out Prabhupada saying one who, because one makes it a noun, like the Muni is a noun. It's the person, Narada, one who. And then he had another very to it. It's not like he's very thoughtful. He's very, very thoughtful. Why is he thoughtful? Because he thinks of Krishna. You don't get more thoughtful than thinking of Radha and Krishna. That's the epitome. That's the perfection. So we should listen very attentively. I will give it to you that, Rajendranandana is up there saying it. Well, I'll repeat it. Well, this reminds me of the instruction Prabhupada gave us, wherein he said, everybody can let you down except Krishna. This is the founder Acharya, the Prabhu at whose feet, the Guru, at whose feet all followers in his line surrender. The devotee said, you can't mislead us, Prabhupada. And he said, no. Only Krishna will not let you down. So, the Bhagavan Guru the Supreme Personality of Servitor Guru. I want the new men to catch on to that. The Supreme Servant of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Bhagavan Narada Muni. Bhagavan Srila Prabhupada. Bhagavan Srila Rupa Goswami. Or as we say, Srila Rupa Goswami Prabhupada. These titles are not just slapped around. They're not just given to anybody and everybody. They're given to those who possess Krishna within the heart, who's fully empowered by the Lord. And anyone who thinks that such a Vaishnava, such an Acharya can mislead you, you might consider very deeply. And yet sometimes people think like this. Now, I will say, you can please some of the people some of the time. You can please some of the people all the time, but you can never please everybody all the time. So who are we trying to please here? Answer that. That's a question, please. Who are we trying to please? Everybody says Krishna. It's unanimous. We could have also said Guru, couldn't we? Do you know Krishna? If it weren't for Guru, would you know how to please Krishna? No. But you have to understand, when Srila Prabhupada is giving you instructions, it has meaning and weight. When he says anybody but Krishna has the potential to mislead you or to let you down, we'll take that in this sense, mislead. How can you be let down if you're leading someone on the proper siddhanta of transcendental knowledge? There is no letdown, is there? Is that a correct statement? If you're accepting, Prabhu, yesterday, he asked, how do we reciprocate with transcendental knowledge? We're saying, okay, here's transcendental knowledge. What do we do with it? We hear it. That was one answer. We assimilate it. That was another answer, meaning we apply it. And then we share it. Someone who is leading us in transcendental, the path of transcendence, are they going to let us down? Are they misleading us? I'm asking. I know the masks are on. It kind of, but Hare Krishna. Anybody want to answer that? No, they will not. They can't. Now, they may make mistakes from a mundane perspective. Krishna even says that there are fools who criticize him. His, how do you say it, the passing away Leela? Mosha Leela? Is that the proper way of saying it? Mosham? God, where are my Prabhus who can help me, correct me when I need it? If Dravida, I assume he's listening because he said he was looking forward to hearing. If you were on Zoom, you could chirp in any time when I need help. But anyway, in the final passing, a so-called hunter shot him with an arrow in the heel of his foot, and supposedly that killed him. And he left a form behind there. Now, if you don't have, so the rascals can jump on, just see, what kind of God is that? He died. He left behind a form. But the Acharyas explain it. No, this is just the bewildering potency of the Lord. Universal form was left behind, so they had something to chew on and criticize. If you want to forget Krishna, Krishna will fulfill that desire basically eternally. For a long, long, long time, many creations of the universe, etc. If that's what you want. You can find fault in anybody. Certainly humans, to err is human, but even in pure devotees. But what is the perfection? We discussed this last time. Perfection of the devotee is to always have the desire to please Krishna. And with that motivation, you will always talk of Krishna, think of Krishna, serve Krishna, share Krishna with others. That's perfection. Not some mundane material, this or that. And the standards of morality, they're there in Scripture, Dharma, but not accepted by society at large. Their standards of morality are always changing. In my lifetime, Bhakti and Michael have some understanding also, the degradation in which we've seen the accepted standards of society is just mind-boggling. We could have never dreamed what is accepted that will be defended. It's okay, that's an option, this and that. We could have never dreamed it because there was some actual morality based on, for the most part in this country, Judaic Christian values. Scripture. Am I right? So we're not so concerned with morals of society. We're not concerned about pleasing the society. If that's your objective, you're not going to please Krishna because they don't know how to please Krishna. Depending on what mode and nature they're under, they may be constantly choosing the wrong thing, the degrading thing, or they might sometimes get it right, sometimes get it wrong. But anyway, the reason why I think I was at an advantage to hear Muni, very thoughtful, that doesn't sound right, was because in Vrindavan in 1977, Srila Prabhupada was going on the roof and hearing, this is early when he arrived, gone to Vrindavan basically because there was a possibility he was thinking I could leave this body. So he was going up on the roof and hearing Bhagavatam, and I happened to be here on this occasion that Satsrup Maharaj explains in the Srila Prabhupada Lilamrita. So Tamal Krishna was reading aloud a verse from the first canto which began, Munio Sadhu Prishto Ham. Srila Prabhupada had him read the synonyms. Tamal Krishna read, Munia, O sages, Sadhu. Now what does Sadhu mean? Now that I've got your thinking caps on, hopefully, what does Sadhu mean? Saintly person. So he's reading the synonyms. Sadhu, this is relevant. Prishta, question. Srila Prabhupada asked, Sadhu? Then he uncovered a thoughtless mistake made by the Sanskrit editor. Sadhu means devotee. Not this is relevant. Srila Prabhupada became very angry and denounced. This is his strong words, and he has the right to chastise his disciples any way he wants, to any extent he wishes. They've given their lives to him. He denounced the rascal Sanskrit scholars. A little learning, he said, is dangerous. Immediately they think they've become big scholars, thinking I shall arrange. And then they write all nonsense. He continued speaking about the mistake for half an hour. He was disturbed. He ordered Tamal Krishna to write at once to the BBT and stop these speculations by his disciples, changing his books in the name of editing. I want you to remember how that was stated. Changing his books in the name of editing. The devotees were startled to see Srila Prabhupada so angry. He was supposed to be peacefully relishing a Srimad Bhagavatam reading here in his garden. Such a change is very serious, he said, because it changed the meaning. Why was it serious? Can you say it again louder? Yeah, it changed the meaning. Even if the authorized acharyas would make a mistake, he said, it would not be changed. This is Arsha Prayoga. In this way, the acharyas are honored. Even if the acharya makes a mistake, they're not changed. This is the way the acharyas are honored. Arsha Prayoga. Now, I was there. I'd never seen Srila Prabhupada become so angry. Not that I had a lot of association with Srila Prabhupada, but he was roaring like a lion, and he was very upset. I'm sorry that the paper fell out. I should have noted what page it was. But let's see if I can find it again so I get the quote that Satsrup Maharaj gave. Hare Krishna. Oh. No, that's not right. Will you be patient with me a moment, please? See if I can find it.
Can you hear me?
Who's speaking?
It's Dravida.
Please. I found it. Now, I knew I'd be touching some nerves, but I will make it balanced and, I think, Krishna conscious. But what would you like to share with us, Dravida Prabhu?
Okay. The first thing I'd like to share is the name of the disappearance Leela, which you asked.
Thank you.
Maushala Leela. Maushala.
How do you spell that? There's 3 syllables?
I see M-A-U-S. I think it's A-L-A. Maushala.
Maushala. Thank you very much, Prabhu.
And
next point.
The other point, I didn't know you were going to get into that critical, it's called the Rascal Editor's Conversation. It's come to be known as what you're reading there from the Lilamrita. You're reading from the Prabhupada Lilamrita?
I am, directly.
Yeah, just one note on that. The actual mistake, which there's a mistake about the mistake. The actual mistake in that verse is the word Muniya.
Right.
Muniya, it says of the sages, but it should be O sages.
Well, when Prabhupada heard it being read to him, I was there, and this is how it was read at that time. The mistake that was made, and Satsrup Maharaj said, what did he say? A thoughtless mistake. It went by him. People make mistakes. That's natural, but they said this is relevant for sadhu.
No, but what I'm trying to tell you is that in Prabhupada's original Bhagavatam,
this is priceless. Please listen attentively.
This is what we call the Delhi Bhagavatam, the one that Prabhupada brought with him. His synonym for sadhu was "this is relevant." Sadhu sometimes means very good. It sometimes means bravo. You know, when devotees in the Bhagavatam.
Oh, sadhu, sadhu.
Yes, sadhu.
You're
sadhu.
saying it's not saintly person, but that it is bravo.
Yes, Krishna's friends will say when he does something wonderful, sadhu, sadhu. So that's what this is all about. This, but what happened was the synonym for Muniya. A thoughtless proofreader. It wasn't me.
No ways.
Prabhupada had written, "Oh the sages, oh the sages," with I think it was a small O, lowercase. I mean, there are a lot of little things like that in the Delhi Bhagavatam. So some person who didn't know Sanskrit, thought, well, there's obviously an F missing there. Of the sages. But what Prabhupada would say, he would say, "Oh, the king." This is Indian English. "Oh, king."
When it was read to him, they said, "Oh, sages." I have a copy of the at that time. "Oh, sages."
Yeah, but I mean the actual "Oh, sages" is correct. It was later that synonym was fixed in the 1976 printing during Prabhupada's time.
Right.
The first canto, that volume anyway, was reprinted with the correction, but it didn't make its way to Krishna Balaram Mandir in time. They were reading the 72 version.
Right.
So, but more importantly, so it's wrong in the Lilamrita, and it's later been on this.
But you're saying in Lilamrita it says Muniya, O sages. You're saying that's what you said was a mistake. Sadhu.
Yeah, it may say that there, but I'm telling you, it was read to Prabhupada, and it was read of the sages. And if you go on with the conversation, I have the whole conversation, you probably say it is Sambodhana. Sambodhana means vocative, O sages, and just
Okay.
see. You know,
But the point in the contention is sadhu. This
yeah,
is relevant, and you're saying in the Delhi Bhagavatam he said that?
Tamal took that. He suggested that. He started saying, "Oh, obviously it must be wrong. That's what the mistake is." Because he thought, "Well, sadhu means sadhu. Sadhu means sage."
No, but Srila Prabhupada said that. Not that Tamal said, "Oh, this doesn't." He didn't catch it. He was reading, and he went on to the next word for word. It was Prabhupada who, I guess we can say, changed his tact in describing what sadhu was from his original Delhi Bhagavatam. I think he has that prerogative, because it certainly also means a saintly person.
Anyway, believe me, you're looking at the Lilamrita, right?
I was reading from Lilamrita, right?
Yeah, and you're maybe relying on your own remembrance, which is a ways back. But if you actually look at the transcript of the conversation, Prabhupada does say, sadhu, this is relevant, but he doesn't say it's wrong. What he says is wrong is the
wow,
the
that's really something.
Yeah. I can share that with you later.
Yeah, please do.
But the most important, if I can just make one point about this, because you're talking about Asha Prayoga, and that's of course a consideration. But what came out of this conversation was a suggestion by Swarup Damodar. You may remember he was there also.
Of course.
Right? Yeah. And he said, "Well, Prabhupada, I think that that these books should be gone, before we reprint now, these books should be gone over by your trusted editors." You didn't say something like that. And all of the mistakes should be fixed before reprinting. And Prabhupada agreed. Now the question, of course, is who's going to go through like that? And 3 devotees were named: Jayadvaita Swami, who by that time Prabhupada had fully trusted as his editor, and Satsvarup Maharaj, and there was a Sanskritist, I forget his name. He was in the conversation at that time, something Maharaj. But Satsvarup Maharaj became very, very busy with his duties as a GBC guru, all this stuff. And the other devotee, I think, dropped out. So the functional editor who was tasked with doing this was Jayadvaita Swami. And then I think it was Das Brahmacharya. And there was an exchange of letters. I don't want to get into the whole thing now.
No, you've made your point. May I continue?
And the bottom line is that Prabhupada agreed that someone should go through his, who he trusted, and find the mistakes. And most of the mistakes, of course, were caused by inattentive editors, transcribers. There's several sources of these mistakes that have come up. Just like this one that you pointed out in yesterday's verse. That was made by a careless editor, a Sanskritist who shouldn't have crossed out, one who was very very thoughtful, became very thoughtful, which is not right. So, but Prabhupada also agreed that part of those mistakes that need to be fixed may be what we call transcendental mistakes in Prabhupada's own production of the book. And I can't get into it now, but there were those that needed to be changed in the Bhagavad Gita. The earlier books are the ones that you find those mostly. So this is a large subject matter. I can't get into it in this moment. But
I hope you don't. I hope you leave me a little time, Dravida.
Yeah, I'm leaving you all the rest of the time. But Asha Prayoga is one side of it, and the other side is Prabhupada said these books shouldn't have any mistakes. One mistake murders the book. Well, so you go fix, you go very scrutinizedly and find all the mistakes. You didn't want any mistakes.
Yeah, that's why, if you allow me, thank
Please,
you very, very much. This is called Satsanga. Discuss these things threadbare. I would have been more, how would you say, able to be right on point with what mistakes Srila Prabhupada is pointing out. And Dravida Prabhu is saying, well, the bottom line is about the necessity of the editing. If you'll remember, when I was reading, I asked everybody to take note. Stop speculations by his disciples changing his books in the name of editing. Srila Prabhupada's not putting down editing. And Dravida Prabhu, it's his service, and he's highlighting the point that Prabhupada wanted the books to be properly edited. I accept that totally. But for me, the bottom line is, because I was there and I heard Srila Prabhupada and I heard him roar, you change one word and you'll destroy this movement. To me, that is a thunderbolt. It's like so serious. And the sincere devotees want to stay on track with the message, the transcendental knowledge given by the spiritual master. And our founder Acarya specifically, because you remember when I quoted that guru, he may or may not let you down. Overwhelmingly, he's not going to let you down because he's guru. You're either guru or you're not guru. And how are you guru? If you know the science of Krishna and you're living it and you're sharing it. Somebody is receiving transcendental knowledge from you, from that guru. You're receiving transcendental knowledge from that guru. And if anybody steps out of that razor's edge siddhanta of our sampradaya, then at that point they're not authorized as guru. You've heard me say that many times in classes. Shastra is the ultimate foundation that gives empowerment and authorization to gurus and sadhus. And so we're Prabhupada Anugas. That's what we aspire to be. That's what we, claim to be. So Prabhupada's message, it's been the greatest service when people edit and they give us the message as Prabhupada intended it to be given. That's the greatest service. When something was chopped out or something was misunderstood or what have you. What a great service. Dravida Prabhu, thank you. Now, it's not that he's perfect and he hasn't made mistakes. That's almost like an absolute. Well, of course. Unless one possesses Krishna within the heart, then one's not going to make a mistake. And as Dravida Prabhu said, sometimes these are transcendental mistakes. Which means they're not going to bury your Krishna consciousness. They're not going to put a flaming halt on your Krishna consciousness. And part of the reason, I didn't think I was going to spend this much time on it, but part of the reason is because there's currently discussion by those who think because of the social rejection of certain words that Srila Prabhupada used, or even his conceptions, that his purport should be changed. I'm not one of those devotees. We're not trying to please the public. And I don't think we should be overwhelmingly concerned of expanding this movement if it's at the expense of the transcendental knowledge not being transmitted to those who join. Prabhupada had the time in ISKCON preaching when he said, I think it's time to stop trying to make new devotees and let's boil the milk. We'd rather have moons than stars. We want quality because empowerment in preaching comes from pleasing Guru. You please Guru by submissively hearing, serving, and sharing that message which he has given you. We want empowerment. We want to please. I can't help on this point think of Srila Prabhupada talking about there were those who, disciples of Bhakti Siddhanta, who criticized his preaching. And it was basically because he was very critical, very strong in his criticism of people who were not saints and Mahatmas, but were being accepted as such. I wanted to share the pastime somehow or other. Well, in the I'll Build You a Temple, there's a nice exchange by one Indian gentleman with Prabhupada saying, how has India ended up in the mess we're in when our culture is to worship the sadhus and Mahatmas? How do we get here? And Prabhupada asked, what is a sadhu? What is a Mahatma? A holy man. Well, what is a holy man? And they kind of like, Prabhupada said, that's the problem. You're saying so many sadhus and Mahatmas are being worshipped by the Indian people, but I will say that 99% of the sadhus and Mahatma you're worshiping are not sadhus and Mahatmas. So what is a sadhu and a Mahatma? He quotes Apichet Sudaracharo. That's a sadhu, one always engaged in devotional service. Mahatma, Bahunam Jamanam Ante, one who accepts Krishna as everything. Daivim Prakritim Ashrita, that a Mahatma is always in the shelter of the Lord, serving. He said, this is Mahatma. This is sadhu. You can't rubber stamp. If you're outside the Siddhanta, you're not. You know, most of those people are rascals. They're impersonalists. Prabhupada said demons. Calling these misleading cheaters demons. And he's quoting Krishna. It's all in Bhagavad Gita. You know, like Subhag Swami says, please don't mind. I'm simply repeating the words of my spiritual master. Now, if I try to say that, I will say I'm doing the best to repeat the words of my spiritual master, and I rely on my Prabhus to help me do so. Because we want this absolute truth to be shared. We certainly want to understand it so that we can share it. So, I love the pastime, Jananivas Prabhu. He's preaching to a guest in Mayapur, and he's preaching to him, and he said, Ram Krishna comes up, says he's a rascal. The man became so disturbed. He had seen Srila Prabhupada already, and he went back to Srila Prabhupada, and he said, one of your disciples is saying that Ram Krishna is a rascal. Now, Ram Krishna is beloved in Bengal. Prabhupada said he ruined Bengal because he's an impersonalist. He's a rascal. Claimed he was God. It's a demon. But Prabhupada said, who has said this? Who is that person? And he acted in front of the gentleman like he was very upset. Jananivas was called up to Srila Prabhupada's room, and he said, you've discouraged this man. You should not have done this. Preaching like that. So Jananivas his heart was broken. Crestfallen, nice word, crestfallen. Felt like jumping off the roof of the Lotus building. What value does his life have? He's displeased as guru. And even in the next morning Bhagavatam class, Prabhupada said we should not preach like this to some of these people. And and Jananivas' heart sinks even more. And then Prabhupada goes, but what can we do? They are rascals. And he immediately got into the zone, I don't know if the word fervor is really appropriate, but he became very animated and I think we can say excited in saying they are rascals. They're taking people to hell along with them. So my point in bringing it around to this, because I'm trying to stay on the philosophy, and I will make the point and then quote one other Leela, where I don't think Prabhupada's message should be changed. He's saying even if a mistake is there, it should not be changed. It's a principle. It's a big principle in spiritual life for getting the empowerment, the blessings of Guru. You don't change, you don't add, you don't subtract. That you hear from the very beginning. You accept it and you present it onwards as it is. Prabhupada said, that was my empowerment. I've simply repeated the message of my spiritual master. Now, having said that, there are times when you don't preach certain things to certain people. If it's going to discourage them, why would you want to discuss it? Let them become attached to Krishna. Then the things which they might find more challenging will be brought up. Prabhupada hadn't even discussed the 4 regulative principles until after he initiated the first batch of disciples. Oh, by the way, the principle of Rupa Goswami is let them become attached to Krishna. So that takes maturity and experience in preaching. So we don't have to emphasize controversial things with people. But I made the point that Bhaktisiddhanta Prabhupada said the disciples that criticized his preaching, they fell down. And in that regard, doesn't mean that they leave, they become long-haired karmis or this or that. Asara, fall down. If you become useless, you're carrying on in your activities. The sons of Advaita Acharya, they didn't stop what they considered to be devotional service. They just went in the direction of Shakya. They included the worship of Durga and became impersonally contaminated. Useless, broken off, unempowered. So these things can happen. It's a warning. One should be very, very, very reserved and careful in playing with such fire. Now, the pastime to connect about preaching according to the receptivity and not discouraging the person. Again, Giriraj Swami shares he was preaching to a wealthy industrialist who was very, he gave a lot of charity to feeding people all around India. Rich man. And he said, this is my bhakti. And Giriraj Das Brahmachari at the time said, that's not bhakti, that's karmakanda. And it is. It's a charity. It's part of dharma. And he was dovetailing it in the service of the Lord. That was his intention. That was his motivation. But Giriraj Swami was trying to say, help our movement. We're directly spreading the glories of Krishna. This is the highest benediction for humanity. It's a solution to everything, not just you fill the belly. You make the body comfortable. And it didn't go as he wished, because the man was somewhat disturbed. So he went and told Prabhupada about the experience. And Srila Prabhupada instructed him that actually it's the duty of the householder to engage in charity. It's the dharma of the householder. In that sense, we should encourage. But you're right. Giving charity to feed the poor is not bhakti, it's karma yoga. And from that, Giriraj Das Brahmachari took that we should try to encourage others. And when we see people doing something less than what we are engaged in, by the causeless mercy of sadhus, guru, Gauranga, we don't look down at them. We want to be compassionate and encourage them to add more Krishna, get to the point where it will become selfless. Everything for Krishna, nothing for myself. That's the position of a Bhagavan Narada Muni, the position of a real sadhu, of a Mahatma, that they are engaged in unalloyed devotional service, serving their spiritual master as a menial servant, and always considering themselves a fool in front of the spiritual master. At no point do they think I've equaled or surpassed my spiritual master. I will eternally be his servant, and he will eternally be my master. And in that mood, then one can capture Krishna. One will want the association of that devotee who has surrendered his life to his dear devotee. I wanted to spend more time on the Bhagavan aspect, the possessor of all opulences, and the Sakshadari Twaina Samasta Shastra, but somehow or other the other aspect came out. But it's an important point of our philosophy, and there is much discussion that can take place in that regard. But I've stated some teachings of Srila Prabhupada, and hopefully you will find something of value in what we've shared. Are there any reflections, questions, or comments? Is there a microphone? Do you have it? Do you mind giving it to Chris?
Thanks for the class. It was really nice and touched on a lot of points. One point that stuck out to me was at the end when you gave the example of Giriraj Swami. and his engagement with the householder who was doing kind of charity, and you hitting on the point of we should be encouraging to people. And something that came up for me and is the question is, in respect to preaching, when we encounter people of other faith, to kind of what should be the mood of encouraging, but also introducing other ways in that we can kind of encourage them in their faith, and kind of where does the line draw for that?
That's a good question. Thank you. If they're fixed in their faith, then why should we disturb them in their faith? We want to encourage them to measure up to what the highest standards of their faith is. Because many times the message has been changed of Jesus Christ, Muhammad, both of which Srila Prabhupada, Bhakti Saraswati Thakur said were empowered representatives of God. So you have to judge by the individual you're talking to. If they're open to hearing about the non-sectarian glories of the Supreme Lord, then of course we want to share. But if respect is not there, if appreciation is not there for who they are and what they're doing, it kind of cripples our fulfillment of the desire that we have at heart to help them. If we come off as better than, holier than thou, as the saying goes. That's why Trinata Pustina Chaina, we have to be very humble. We have to be respectful of everyone, not wanting any respect in return. Tolerate. Then empowerment can come, will come, and you'll be able to help these people. There are many Christians, we say many, there are Christians that we know of that they are chanting Hare Krishna while worshiping Jesus in their churches, from their pulpit, synagogues, etc. Hare Krishna.
This is somewhat of a similar question, but I was wondering if you could maybe touch on the balance between, because there's the injunction that the sadhus, they cut down ignorance with their sharp words. I was wondering if you could touch on the balance between that and not discouraging people.
Yeah, that's a real fine line, isn't it? And it comes with maturity and realization. Compassion certainly is there. We want to encourage. But Prabhupada, he preached like his own spiritual master. He said, practically speaking, I'm the only one preaching against demigod worship and impersonalism throughout all of India. Practically speaking, the only one. And it's even made mention that I'll build you a temple. I mean, Giraj Swami mentions his name, so why not? I think it's to the credit. When you hear about the mistakes or misconceptions of devotees that stay engaged in devotional service and turn into such wonderful Vaishnavas, and there's no harm in saying these things. Some think, a name shouldn't be mentioned. Why make it personal? But if you depersonalize it, it's like kind of makes it rough telling the history. And Dravida Prabhu is giving a perfect example. History is so important. So important to get down what, sometimes we say old school. Get down the mood that was there in serving Prabhupada. The mood that he had in serving his spiritual master. So, Prabhupada taught, he would preach, he'd quote hogs, dogs, camels, and asses, mudhas, asuras. He'd preach like that. And one Prabhu, Lokanath, Das Brahmacharya, a new devotee, he thought, well, why does Prabhupada preach so heavy? Why is he discouraging these people? And I don't know if it's him or another devotee brought it up to Prabhupada, like, wow, you were really speaking heavy to that, like, rich man. He said, why should I flatter him? Our business is not to flatter people. A pure devotee like Srila Prabhupada, he knows what is best for the conditioned soul. He knows what prescription to give, and if followed, they'll become cured. So sometimes he would just hammer and hammer and hammer. When Tamal Krishna Maharaj and his godbrother Shyamasundar Prabhu, when they actually broke the sales contract, they had it. It was just the finish line was this close. And they didn't want to buy that property. Time won't allow, but Prabhupada for a year chastised him in front of so many Indian people coming for the darshan. Said, this is the foolish young boy who broke our sales contract. And to his credit, he took it. A year. Can you imagine a year being chastised and humiliated in front of other people? Now, why would Srila Prabhupada do that? Evidently, Tamal Krishna, was he Goswami yet? Goswami needed that. That was the medicine for him. Prabhupada knew what it took to grind the false ego. Down, 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 down. And Tamal Krishna Maharaj says, I never at any time thought that he did not love me any less. He loved me just as much, even though I made such a foolish mistake and committed even more in the future. So that's the point about these Paramahamsas. They are coming from the platform of love for Krishna, love for us. And whether they give it in the form of chastisement or in encouragement. The thunderbolt or the rose, if taken properly, the effect will be the same. We will please them. We will become Krishna conscious by their blessings. Anybody else? Travita, did you want to put any last word in? Or anybody else online?
Hare Krishna, Dhanyavad Pranam. Thank you for a nice class. I think we don't have any comments from the online community. And David Prabhu has left just a few minutes before.
Yeah, it was a long class. Well, I thank you for your patience. I thank you for your examples in trying to surrender to the best of your ability to Guru and Gauranga. And I'm very grateful for your association. Srila Prabhupada Ki, Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki, Samaveda Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki. Thank you, Tapas Prabhu.